An accident tied me to Mike Russell for 3 years. At first, the arrogant alpha young master was dissatisfied with the relationship and looked down upon it. He even said, "Only a stupid person would fall for an omega 5 years older. You're old and boring." 3 years later, Mike Russell grabbed my hand, refusing to let go. He cried louder than anyone, "I'm the big stupid. I like you. Please love me." Welcome to History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. It was 11 o'clock at night when the social event ended. After sending the drunk Zoe off, I pulled out my phone to order a car. The screen lit up and Mike Russell's voice message popped up. "David Brooker, you're really something." His clear voice was tinged with anger, as if he was at his breaking point. Before this message, about an hour ago, he had sent me a text asking where I was and when I would be home. At that moment, I was too caught up in the drinking game to reply. Mike Russell had always been the arrogant young master, the one everyone fawned over. When had he ever been ignored like this? He was clearly fuming inside. I raised my hand and typed, "I'm heading back now." 20 minutes later, I arrived home and punched in the code for the door. As the door cracked open, a hand suddenly reached out from the darkness, yanking my collar and pulling me inside. Ugh! My back collided with the hard wall, and I frowned, stifling a grunt. The scent of alpha pheromones flooded the entire room. The winter pine smell was sharp and cold, starkly different from Mike Russell's usual fiery temperament. "You still know how to come back?" he snarled. He shoved me against the doorframe, his dark eyes glaring at me, lips pressed into a thin line. I tried pushing him, but it was useless. I had no choice but to explain in a calm voice. There was an important event. I couldn't leave right away. "Don't you know what day it is?" he demanded. His breath came ragged, hot against my neck, and Mike Russell's pheromones surged, almost drowning me. They wrapped around my sensitive glands, the alcohol intensifying the heat in my body, making my head spin. "Speak." Mike Russell wasn't satisfied with my silence. He leaned down and bit into my neck. I gasped in pain, instinctively releasing my own pheromones to soothe him. I reached up and grabbed his shoulder, speaking through the kiss, "I know." Today was his heat cycle. His mood softened a little, but his pheromones remained dominant, flooding my glands to the point of almost bursting. "You know, and still didn't reply to my messages, came back so late, care about work more than me?" He grumbled, not waiting for a response, and yanked off my tie, his hurried movements popping open 2 buttons on my shirt. He placed soft kisses on my collarbone, trailing lower. I gripped his hair, pulling him closer as I tilted my head back to meet his touch. During his heat cycle, Mike Russell became clingy, hiding his prideful nature and willingly sinking into this shared passion. In these moments, I often got the strange feeling that maybe he did have feelings for me. The mingling scent of roses and pine filled the air. My legs went weak, and as my body slid downward, Mike Russell swiftly caught me around the waist and threw me onto the couch. He buried his face in my shoulder, inhaling deeply, then suddenly looked up, his face darkening. His brows furrowed sharply. "Why do you smell like another alpha?" Pheromones between alphas were naturally repellent to each other, especially when Mike Russell, in the middle of his heat cycle, picked up on it. His pheromones turned aggressive, pressing toward me. Pain shot through me as I broke out in a cold sweat. I must have picked it up at the party. There were so many people, I didn't notice. "This scent is disgusting, it's irritating. I'll make sure to clean up before coming back next time." The thought of other alphas at the party getting close to me, deliberately leaving their pheromones on me, made Mike Russell irrationally angry. "Are you really that desperate for money, that you have to drink with those disgusting alphas? It's for work." Mike Russell seemed even more upset, his eyes dark and heavy as he glared at me. His sudden, irrational behavior tonight made me test the waters with a question. Are you jealous?" He froze for a moment, then scoffed as if he had heard the most absurd thing. "I just want to remind you not to forget who you are. Stop attracting attention from other alphas." Of course, I was just the accidental consequence of something that happened 3 years ago, which led to me being bound to him. In the end, I was nothing more than his personal pheromone mediator. Apart from soothing him during his heat cycles, he had no feelings for me whatsoever. In the foggy bathroom, the steam and alcohol made my head spin. My hands were pinned behind my back, and my body was pressed tightly against his broad, burning chest. His sharp teeth sunk into my swollen glands, his bite harder than usual, as if punishing me for my earlier words. The scent of pine quickly overpowered the other pheromones on me. The sharp pain from the temporary marking made me gasp, but it only fueled his more vicious actions. My body shifted, and Mike Russell's beautiful face swayed in the light before me. I lost count of how many times I was marked that night. My glands went from burning to numb. In the haze of my fading consciousness, I heard Mike Russell's voice again. Next time, don't get so close to other alphas. I thought to myself, this must be his alpha possessiveness talking again. To spare myself more trouble, I nodded obediently. You got it. But who could say if, next time, would even have anything to do with him anymore? 3 years had passed. Mike Russell's pheromone imbalance should be nearly cured. And once he recovered, that would also mean the end of our contractual relationship. We first met at a bar. To pay for my mother's medical bills, I worked like a mule in an office during the day and took on a side job at a bar at night, selling drinks. 5 minutes before the end of my shift, I leaned against the counter with a drink, cigarette between my lips, exhaling smoke. Out of nowhere, a strikingly beautiful face appeared beside me. The young man froze when he saw me, then stiffly asked, "Wanna hook up?" It was clearly a suggestive question, yet he blurted it out like a soldier going to his death. I'd been alive 24 years and had plenty of people pursue me before. But no one had ever hit exactly all my weak spots the way he did. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was just lust at first sight. I accepted his offer. Sure. Upstairs at the hotel, as he checked us in, I caught a glimpse of his ID. Mike Russell, 19. I looked at him in mild surprise. Delicate features, long legs, dressed like money. I couldn't help guessing which wealthy young master had just come of age and already learned to go out hunting for fun. I followed him to the room. The door clicked open. Mike Russell froze at the threshold, staring blankly at the rose-petal-covered bed. I took off my jacket, sat on the edge of the bed, and patted the spot beside me with a smile. "Wanna sit?" He bristled like a startled cat. Why are you so eager?" His fists clenched, and he tried to retreat, but under my puzzled gaze, he forcibly stopped himself. I softened my voice. "You look nervous." "I meant, maybe we could sit and talk first." "You sound so experienced," he muttered, sneaking a glance at me. I chuckled. "Not really. This is my first time too. But we can't just stand here forever, can we?" As I spoke, I quietly released my pheromones to test our compatibility. From the moment we met, I'd caught a faint trace of pine on him. But after a while, there was no reaction. Could he be an omega? Unwilling to give up, I released more, letting my rose scent fill the room. Mike Russell finally reacted, but not the way I expected. He clapped a hand over his mouth and nose, staggering back to the floor, his face flushed, breathing hard. "What's wrong?" I rushed over, reaching out to help him up. Mike Russell slapped my hand away, glaring at me with suspicion. What did you do to me?" "I'm burning up." "Me?" We'd barely spoken 2 sentences. Was he here to scam me? "You smell so good. No, stay away from me." He curled in on himself, cold sweat beading on his skin, his breath ragged. Suddenly, powerful alpha pheromones erupted from him. I accidentally inhaled some, and my own glands began to heat up. "You're in heat, don't you know?" And my body was far too sensitive to his pheromones. A bad feeling prickled at the back of my neck. Mike Russell's expression was indescribable, shocked and dazed as he stared at me. His lips trembled. "Huh? Beta." The words had barely left his mouth when his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Under the stimulation of my pheromones, Mike Russell had undergone a secondary differentiation from beta to alpha. And it triggered a new condition, pheromone imbalance syndrome. Because our pheromone compatibility reached a staggering 98%, I was the only one who could help stabilize him. The treatment would take about 3 years. Without it, the frequent episodes could become life-threatening. When Mike Russell's parents were notified, they rushed to the hospital. The first thing they said to me was, "If you agree to help Mike Russell for 3 years, we'll cover all of your mother's medical expenses." I just entered the workforce with little savings. My mother's illness devoured thousands every day in hospitalization and treatment. To say I wasn't tempted by their offer would have been a lie. When the young master awoke in the hospital, he exploded. "I don't want an omega 5 years older than me. Old and boring." I laughed in disbelief. "You were the one who came on to me. What, did you lose your memory after one night?" Mike Russell flushed, turning his face away with a pout. "That was just a game. Doesn't mean I actually like you." At the bar, he'd lost a card game with his friends and had to randomly pick someone to hit on, then go upstairs and stay in a hotel room for 15 minutes. Who knew a stupid game would lead to all this, and cost him so much? But this wasn't something he could just back out of by saying no. Mike Russell's father was firm. He forced his son to sign the 3-year pheromone treatment contract with me. As for me, I agreed to help, but not without my own secret hopes. I liked Mike Russell. I thought maybe, over time, he'd come to like me too. Reality proved me wrong. You really can't have everything. Mike Russell never wanted to accept this involuntary relationship from the beginning. He didn't like me either. Later, I tried to express my feelings for him. He snorted, "There are plenty of people who like me. What's there to like about you, an omega 5 years older than me?" With his chin raised slightly, his beautiful eyes glared at me like a proud cat. I couldn't change the fact that I was older. But in other areas, over these 3 years, I tried to work hard, hoping to earn his affection. But in the end, it seemed like nothing ever went as I hoped. The chaotic and absurd 3 days finally passed. I dragged myself out of bed, my body aching all over. Mike Russell, that bastard, was reckless with his youth and didn't know any restraint. His stamina was like that of a bull. I resisted the urge to curse as I made my way to the bathroom to freshen up. My clothes were torn by him, so I had no choice but to grab something from his wardrobe to change into. When I came out into the living room, I saw that bull, Mike Russell sitting on the sofa. His long legs were casually stretched out as he worked on his computer. He looked up and noticed my neat attire, his brows furrowing. "Where are you going?" I picked up the tie under the sofa and tied it around my neck, my voice dry. "Vacation's over. Back to work." Not everyone is like him. This young master who took over his family's company before even graduating and didn't have to work a day in his life. If it wasn't for the big deal I closed, the company wouldn't have given me 3 days off so easily. He closed his computer and stood up. "I need to go to the hospital for a checkup today. You're coming with me." "But my vacation The checkup's important. It's your fault I'm like this. You can't just leave me hanging." Mike Russell cut me off, giving me the look that said, "You figure it out." I sighed in resignation and pulled out my phone to request another day off from work. It was the same doctor from 3 years ago. "Good news, all the readings are stable. Congratulations, Mr. Russell. Your pheromone imbalance has been cured." I instinctively looked at Mike Russell. To my surprise, he had been staring at me, our gazes meeting. He frowned. "You're pale. Not feeling well?" I lowered my eyes, gathering myself, and murmured, "My back hurts. My legs are sore." Mike Russell's ears turned slightly pink, and he coughed lightly. For once, he smiled at me gently. "Wait for me in the car." I nodded, my mind already drifting, and left the hospital. Standing by the roadside, I thought about his smile. Now that he could finally break free from this unwanted relationship, he must be happy. Soon enough, Mike Russell came out, carrying a bag. He opened the car door and placed it in the back seat. Through the opening, I saw that it was a bag full of inhibitors. I couldn't help but ask as I got in the car, "Buying so many inhibitors?" Mike Russell, driving with an unusually pleasant demeanor, replied. I'm fine now. I'll need these for later. In other words, he no longer needed me. Although I had expected this day to come, it still left a sour feeling in my chest. My glands ached slightly at the back of my neck as I exhaled deeply. Ding ding ding. Mike Russell's phone rang, interrupting me. He answered it through Bluetooth. After hanging up, he turned to me. My parents heard I've recovered. They want us to come over to the family estate. I more or less guessed what kind of scene awaited me. It was something I had to face sooner or later, so I nodded. Let's go then. The car pulled up to the Russell family estate. Mike Russell was called into the study by his father to talk business. His mother and I were left sitting in the living room. As soon as the father and son left, the lady took out the original agreement. Mr. Brooker, we've fulfilled our end of the bargain, and you've kept your promises. Now that the contract has expired, it should be considered null and void. Her smile was polite, but her tone was firm, leaving no room for discussion. Can I say goodbye to Mike Russell? After all, we'd been together for 3 years. It seemed only right to have some closure. She smiled warmly. Next month, I'll arrange for Mike Russell to meet with the daughter of one of his father's old friends. Mr. Brooker, you're a smart man. I'm sure you understand what I mean. She misunderstood, thinking I wanted to cling to Mike Russell, and with a swift motion, tore up both copies of the agreement. She then watched as I deleted and blocked Mike Russell's contact details from my phone, before having her driver escort me out of the estate. I returned to Mike Russell's place, grabbed a backpack, and packed all of my personal items that I had left behind. Before I closed the door behind me, I hesitated for a moment, then left a note on his desk. Congratulations on your recovery. Goodbye. Back at my rented apartment, I lay on my bed, exhausted. I stared at my silent phone, feeling the emptiness slowly creep in. Sure enough, once the contract expired, Mike Russell wanted nothing more to do with me. Frustrated, I felt an urge to light a cigarette. But when I checked my pockets, I realized I had quit smoking long ago. Because Mike Russell didn't like it. Quitting smoking was easy. But what about my feelings for Mike Russell? The next day, when I arrived at work, I received a notification about being transferred for an external assignment. Why didn't anyone tell me in advance? I asked HR. The HR clerk lowered her voice. Mr. Brooker, did you offend the general manager recently? He called me in the middle of the night out of nowhere, told me to transfer you to the UK branch as soon as possible. My head throbbed from lack of sleep. I shut my eyes for a moment, remembering something. The general manager and Mike Russell's mother had been college classmates. I could guess easily enough. She must be worried I wouldn't cut ties cleanly with Mike Russell, so she moved fast, trying to wipe me out of his world. But Mike Russell never liked me to begin with. Flies can't twist a thigh. If I tried to argue, I'd probably just get fired. The market's bad, and I still need this job to survive. Love could be lost, but bread couldn't. The company gave me only 1 week to hand things over. I spent the days frantically working and preparing to leave the country. During breaks, I'd glance at my phone, half expecting a message from Mike Russell. There was nothing. I couldn't tell whether to be relieved or disappointed. A self-mocking, bitter smile tugged at my lips. David Brooker, cut your losses while you can. In the dead of night, I whispered this to myself. The day before leaving after work, I went to the cemetery to visit my mother and say goodbye. Back then, the Russell family had paid for her treatment. After less than 2 years, she still couldn't escape fate. An emergency surgery failed, and she passed away. I couldn't accept it. For months I drifted through life in grief. Mike Russell arranged my mother's funeral and stayed by my side through a month of sleepless nights. A month later, just after my mother's death, my birthday came. The sadness I'd barely managed to contain came rushing back. The suffocating grief finally found an outlet, and I broke down, crying hard. Mike Russell, the little master who had no idea how to comfort anyone, panicked. He even went online for advice. He brought out several bottles of his treasured liquor, uncorked one, and handed it to me. Drink. They say numbing your nerves makes it hurt less. That night, we emptied more than half the bottles in his cabinet. The pain and sorrow shifted from me onto him. When he sobered up, He crouched, counting the bottles on the floor with a heartache that wasn't about money. Those bottles had been painstakingly collected from all over the world, aged and cherished. Those 2 months were the closest we'd ever been, body and soul. The young master who knew nothing about caring for others learned to comfort and look after me. His constant presence day and night made me think, maybe, just maybe, he liked me a little. So I foolishly confessed my feelings. And got his very first answer. Without the bond of pheromones, there really wasn't anything about me worth his liking. After the cemetery, I took a cab back to my apartment, packed my luggage, and headed to the airport for a red-eye flight to an unfamiliar country. I didn't know that just after I left, Mike Russell arrived at my apartment, only to find it empty. At the branch office, I took a few days to adjust to the time zone and routine, then threw myself into work. David, the Vice President of Creative AI, is here. He's waiting for you in the conference room. The receptionist called to let me know the client for a collaborative project had arrived. I grabbed the project file and headed for the conference room. David Brooker, long time no see. A man in a silver suit stood at the head of the table, smiling warmly. I blinked in surprise, then broke into a smile of my own. Simon Reddington. He spread his arms, his grin widening. I thought you'd forgotten all about me, old friend. You've got to be kidding. What's it been, 6 years? What are you doing here? Unable to hold back my excitement, I went forward to give my college friend a long overdue hug. Nothing feels better than seeing a familiar face in a foreign land. I came to negotiate a collaboration. I wasn't going to come in person, but when I saw the contact was you, well, it was fate, wasn't it? You're a vice president now. Doing well, huh? He laughed. Want me to poach you? Come work with me. I hesitated for a beat, then politely declined. No need. I'm fine here. Mostly, I didn't want him tangled up in my mess with the Russell family. We caught up and talked business, and with a familiar face it was easy to finalize the deal quickly. When lunch rolled around, I invited him out to eat and we kept reminiscing. We were in the middle of a lively conversation when someone stormed in. A hand grabbed mine and yanked me from my seat before I even had time to react. David Brooker, you've got some nerve. Not even a month after dumping me, and you're already laughing it up with a new guy? Meanwhile, I've been running around like an idiot, a headless fly, searching for you. I stared at the sudden intruder in disbelief. Mike Russell, his angry words making my head spin. How? David Brooker, who is this? Simon and I spoke at the same time. He stood up, trying to pull me out of Mike Russell's grip. Mike Russell yanked me behind him in one swift motion, his beautiful face dark as thunder. Don't touch my omega. His icy pheromones burst outward, laced with aggression. The two towering alphas stood in a silent standoff. One was furious, the other unreadable. I couldn't help but watch the awkward scene unfolding before me, my temples throbbing. This is a public place. Keep your pheromones in check, I said as I pulled Mike Russell back. Then, turning to Simon Reddington, I gave a slight, apologetic smile. Sorry, Simon, I have something to take care of. Let's call it a day for now, and I'll take you out to dinner another time. Simon, undeterred by the tension between us, looked at me with concern. If you need me, I can stay. I shook my head. No, it's fine. I can handle this. Simon saw my resolve and, with a worried glance, left the room. As soon as the door closed behind him, Mike Russell's voice cut through the air, dripping with jealousy. You still want to look after him even after he's gone? Is he that attractive to you? I yanked my hand free from his grip. The agreement is over. What do you want from me now? If I didn't come find you, would you just go off with that alpha? His grip tightened, not letting go of the question that seemed to gnaw at him. He had to know the connection between Simon and me. Mike Russell, it's over between us. Whether I fall in love or get married now, it has nothing to do with you. You're planning to marry him? His voice rose and his eyes reddened. David Brooker, you promised my parents you'd stay with me for money's sake, and now you just leave without a word. Do you have any sincerity at all? The hurt in his voice was almost tangible, and I couldn't help but feel it. The one who'd always claimed not to like me was now the one accusing me of leaving without notice. I left you a note before I left. And your mother, in order to sever all ties, not only had me delete and block you from all my contacts, she even used her connections to send me off to this foreign country for work. I thought I was doing nothing wrong by you. What note? You mean, that day when you suddenly left, my mom kicked you out? He furrowed his brow. As I expected, he knew nothing. I glanced at my watch. My lunch break was almost over. I've said what I needed to say. Mike Russell, let's call it quits. Don't come looking for me again. He stood there, lost in thought for a moment, and by the time he snapped out of it, I had already walked out the door. Footsteps echoed behind me as he caught up, grabbing my hand with an urgency that sent a ripple of confusion through me. After I found out you left the old house, I wanted to come find you, but my family kept me locked in, saying it was for my recovery, cutting off all my outside connections. I finally managed to escape through the window to look for you, but when I did, they told me you moved away. Later, they told me that you left because you wanted the opportunity to go abroad for work, that you just cut things off with me so cleanly. Hearing his explanation, I understood just how much his family had gone to great lengths to create these misunderstandings between us. So, you came to find me to settle the score? I couldn't think of any other reason. No, Mike Russell quickly responded, his hand still clutching mine. I want you back. I stared at him for a moment, then, suddenly, I smiled and asked, Mike Russell, you're not telling me you can't let go of me, are you? Have you started to like me? Mike Russell seemed to have been hit by something I said, and his frustration boiled over. How could that be? I'm just not used to, he fumbled for words. I sighed, realizing how foolish I had been to expect anything. 3 years is enough time for a person to grow attached to something, or someone. All your discontent is just withdrawal symptoms. Give it time and it'll pass. Just like how my feelings for him might eventually fade with time. I told myself this, trying to give him a reasonable excuse and a way out. Mike Russell's expression darkened, and I could tell he wasn't convinced. He felt there was something wrong with my reasoning, but he couldn't quite figure out why. His phone vibrated in his pocket. One of my colleagues was asking where I was. My shift had already started. I turned around and walked toward the office building, with Mike Russell trailing behind, still frustrated. As I reached the entrance, security blocked his way. Seeing me walk away, Mike Russell tried to force his way through, but 2 security guards quickly intervened, and he couldn't get past them. I didn't know exactly what happened with the security, but by the time the afternoon passed, he had still not made it up to bother me. That evening, after work, I returned to my assigned dormitory, ate some fast food, and got ready to go throw out the trash. When I opened the door, someone dressed in a bear costume stood outside, holding a box of cake. Your delivery, came a muffled voice from inside the costume. I didn't order any cake. You've got the wrong address. I was about to close the door when his hand shot out to stop me. No mistake. Today's your birthday. His voice became clearer, and I recognized it immediately. I sighed in frustration. Mike Russell, what exactly are you trying to do? Mike Russell, realizing I recognized him, pulled off the bare head to reveal his handsome face. His lips bruised and swollen, his forehead slightly swollen too. You didn't get into a fight with the security guards this afternoon, did you? I frowned, concerned. Mike Russell just grimaced. They tried to stun me as soon as they arrived, wouldn't even listen to what I had to say. I was just defending myself. David Brooker, my face hurts so much, he whined, his eyes watering with the smallest hint of tears as he looked at me with a pitiful gaze. I knew he'd put on the bear costume to soften me up. Come in. I retrieved the medicine cabinet and handed him some pain-relieving ointment. You do it yourself, I told him. But he'd never done this before. After taking off the bear suit, he poured the ointment into his hands and rubbed it all over his face. I was about to stop him, but I was too late. He winced as the ointment stung his skin, especially where it touched the corner of his mouth and near his eyes. He reached for his face to wipe it off. Stop. How could you be this clueless? I yanked his hand away, grabbing a wet wipe to carefully clean the ointment off his skin. Then, I dragged him to the bathroom sink, gently pressing his head under the running water to wash his face. Mike Russell closed his eyes, unable to see. The sudden rush of water startled him, and he accidentally splashed it onto himself, soaking his shirt. Once the mess was cleaned up, I handed him a towel, draping it over his head. "Dry off yourself." He yanked the towel off, then shook his head vigorously, like a dog drying itself. The water droplets splattered all over my face. I wiped my face and pushed him away, chuckling but scolding, "Mike Russell, how old are you? Acting so childish." He tilted his head back, pushing his wet hair away from his forehead, revealing his smooth, full brow and delicate, handsome features. This face, no matter how many times I see it, it still leaves me in awe, making my heart skip a beat. My hands reek of the medicine. "Can you help me?" he asked, stepping closer and handing me the towel. I took it with resignation. "Lower your head." Mike Russell did as he was told, bending slightly to make it easier for me. Despite his explosive temper, his hair was obedient and soft. I gently wiped his damp neck, my fingers brushing against his gland. Suddenly, Mike Russell grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms. "What are you doing?" I lifted my arm to press against his chest, trying to create some space. "David Brooker? I miss you," he muttered, burying his face into my neck, greedily inhaling the sweet scent of roses. The alpha's pheromones exploded in the cramped bathroom, spreading and suffocating the air around us. Our familiar bodies reacted easily, heat building up between us. My waist and abdomen grew weak, and I found myself pressed against his soaked body, my mouth slightly parted as I gasped for air. Mike Russell leaned closer, his breath mingling with mine. Just as our lips were about to touch, the mood, once electric and charged, was shattered by the sound of my loud burp. Mike Russell turned his gaze to me. "David Brooker, you did that on purpose, didn't you?" I honestly didn't want anything to happen between us. I needed to stick to my decision to leave him behind. I ate too much. It's hard to move around after a full meal. "Oh, I wasn't that eager either," Mike Russell mumbled, but his pheromones didn't stop. They continued to swirl around me, wild and untamed. With a sigh, I pulled out the suppressor patch, tore it open, and stuck it on my gland. Mike Russell's eyes widened when he saw what I was doing. He wanted to be angry but couldn't say anything. He pursed his lips, turning into a pouting, inflatable fish. If it weren't for him suddenly bringing me cake, I would have forgotten that today was my birthday. I ate a couple of bites from the cake he cut and offered to me, but I was too full. I told him to finish the rest. Once the food was finished, he didn't seem eager to leave. I glanced at him and gave him the hint. "Birthday's over, and we've said everything we need to say. It's time for us to part ways. You can go back home now." Mike Russell frowned. "Why do you always try to push me away? What other reason would I have to keep you here? Right, there's one more thing." I retrieved a small gift box from my bedroom and handed it to him. He opened it, revealing a pair of wedding rings inside. Mike Russell stared, shocked and excited. "Are you proposing to me?" "No," I replied coolly. "It's a gift for your wedding." "Me? Who am I marrying?" "Your arranged partner." Mike Russell jumped up, looking utterly bewildered. Why didn't anyone inform me I was getting married? I raised an eyebrow. "Guess I let it slip. Your mom hasn't told you yet, but I'm sure it's coming soon." Almost to confirm my words, Mike Russell's phone rang. It was his father, scolding him on the line, ordering him to come back home immediately and meet with his arranged bride. Before Mike Russell could even protest, there was a knock at my dorm door. This time, when I opened it, 2 men in black entered with clear intent, heading straight for Mike Russell. "Sir, we apologize, but Mrs. Russell has sent us to escort you back home." It wasn't just an escort, it was a forcible capture. Mike Russell tried to resist, but a tranquilizer dart took him down, and before he lost consciousness, he shot me one last, furious glance. They took him away. I let out a long breath, the anger that had been building up in my chest slowly easing. I pulled my phone from my pocket and sent a text to Mike Russell's mother. "He's gone. Can you return my mother's ashes now?" A reply came swiftly. Understood. I tossed the phone aside and slumped onto the couch in exhaustion. After parting with Mike Russell in the restaurant earlier, I had gotten back to the office only to receive a call from his mother. She had discovered Mike Russell's visit to see me and had threatened me with ruthless methods to force her son back home. A month passed before I saw any news about him again. The media in the country was abuzz with the announcement that the heir of the Russell Company was soon to marry the daughter of the head of Ye Real Estate. I guess the Russell family was too busy preparing for their son's upcoming wedding to focus on me. With that, I was finally able to board a plane and return to my home country. After finishing my business with Simon Reddington, he invited me to meet up once I returned. I arrived at the hotel and spent the day settling in. At 8 that evening, I took a cab to the bar where we had agreed to meet. Returning to this place gave me a strange sense of nostalgia, as though everything had changed, but the memories remained. I met Simon Reddington there. We shared a few drinks and caught up, laughing and chatting. After pouring another drink, he suddenly said, "That alpha you were with that day turned out to be the heir of the Russell family. Didn't expect you've already talked to him," Simon Reddington said, a hint of curiosity in his voice. I gave a small, forced smile. It wasn't really a conversation. "He's getting married, you know?" Why do you look like that when he's mentioned?" A little reluctance left. "No," I answered without hesitation, quickly denying it. Simon Reddington stared at me for a while, his deep eyes seemingly trying to see through my soul. I instinctively avoided his gaze, taking a deep drink of my wine. "Marry me, David Brooker." Cough. I was so startled I almost choked, covering my mouth in shock. Still coughing, I stared at Simon Reddington, who had just made such a bold statement, as though he were from another world. He calmly took out a handkerchief from his suit pocket and gently wiped away the wine on the corner of my lips. "Was it really that shocking? You knew I liked you back in college, didn't you?" I was at a loss for words. Back in college, he did confess to me, but after I rejected him, it always felt awkward whenever we interacted. Eventually, our meetings became less frequent, and after graduation, we got busy with our respective careers. Occasionally we'd reach out to each other, but the conversations were short. I quickly composed myself and smiled lightly. "Thank you for your feelings, but I'm not thinking about marriage right now." "But are you still waiting for him to come back around?" Simon Reddington seemed confused. "It's just my personal opinion, has nothing to do with him." "It's getting late, let's call it a night for now," I said, trying to end the conversation before he said something else I wouldn't be able to reject. Feeling slightly drunk, I left the bar without noticing the man who had been sitting in the shadows at the back table. When he overheard the proposal, he nearly lost his temper. If it weren't for the fact that it was a public place, he would have rushed over to beat up the guy who was stealing his territory. His gaze dark and brooding, he got up and followed me. Once I stepped out of the hotel elevator, heading toward my room, I could vaguely hear hurried footsteps behind me, getting closer and closer. My hand froze on the room key card, and I was about to turn around when suddenly, a large body pressed against my back. Fingers slipped between mine, swiping the card and opening the door. Before I could react, a strong force shoved me into the room. The door slammed shut and locked behind me, and I was pinned against it by someone who smelled strongly of alcohol. A flood of heated kisses attacked my lips and face. The darkness of the room made it hard to see who it was. My drunkenness quickly faded as I realized the situation. I struggled to punch this intruder, trying to push him away. But it seemed like he anticipated my move. His arm twisted behind my back, and with a firm grip on my waist, he flipped me around, forcing me to face away from him. Ugh! I gritted my teeth in discomfort. His teeth pierced into my gland, and a wave of overwhelming alpha pheromones flooded my senses. The scent of pine wood filled the air, sharp and fresh. "Mike Russell, what are you doing? Let go of me." I fought against the trembling in my body, trying to resist his actions. "You won't marry him or I'll bite you to death," Mike Russell growled, marking me harder. "What marriage? Are you crazy? Get away from me and stop acting like a lunatic." I yelled. "Yes, I'm crazy. I'm about to lose my mind." Mike Russell's arms tightened around me like a vice. I don't blame you for teaming up with my mom to bring me back to the country. I can endure all the arrangements and play the part that everyone expects. But just when I thought they'd relax their vigilance about you, you come back, and now another alpha has set his sights on you. It drives me crazy." His arms were like iron, holding me tight, afraid that I might disappear if he let go. I could barely breathe, releasing my own pheromones to calm his unease, trying to talk sense into him. "You need to let go. Mike Russell, what the hell are you doing?" Before I could finish, he lifted me by the waist and threw me onto the bed. Everything spun and I felt dizzy. Just as I tried to prop myself up, he yanked my tie and bound my hands above my head. Alpha pheromones flooded into my glands once again, nearly suffocating me. He leaned down, his lips brushing against my ear. "David Brooker, give me 2 more days. I'll handle everything. Come back to me, okay?" I turned my head, avoiding his lips. "You don't even like me. Why are you so obsessed with keeping me? If you're just used to my pheromone dependency?" "Damn pheromone dependency," he growled, interrupting me. He pulled back slightly, his eyes intense and sincere as he stared at me. "David Brooker, I like you. No other factors, nothing else matters. I just like you. Only you. Do you understand?" I stared at him in shock, unable to speak. The words I had waited 3 years to hear were finally being spoken. It felt so unreal, like I was living a dream. Mike Russell kissed my slightly parted lips, and when I didn't push him away, he took it further, deepening the kiss. I snapped back to reality, turning my head to avoid his cat-like nibbles, locking eyes with him. "Mike Russell, you're drunk. I'm perfectly sober. Don't believe me? Feel for yourself." He pulled me closer, pressing his solid, firm body against mine. A tickling sensation ran through my throat. I bit my lip, struggling to regain my composure. "You've forgotten everything you said before? You said you didn't like older men, that I was too old and boring." I emphasized the word, old. Mike Russell blushed deeply, ashamed, wishing he could go back and slap the version of himself that said those things. "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Mike Russell apologized quickly, then began to explain with a sincerity I wasn't used to. He said that no matter what he was doing or where he was, he would always think of me, of the moments we shared. That's why he had been unable to sleep for so long, constantly agitated. The memory of my rejection lingered in his mind, and a strange, dull pain gripped Mike Russell's heart. The feeling was inexplicable, agonizing, and full of grievance. He thought he was sick, so he even consulted a doctor. The doctor told him there was nothing wrong with his health. He was simply heartbroken. Mike Russell was stunned, unwilling to accept it. He thought his relationship with me had merely been a transaction, not even a proper romance. He refused to believe it. He asked several more doctors, even psychologists, but each one gave him the same answer. Reluctantly, Mike Russell had to reconsider his relationship with me. It was then that he realized that I had quietly taken up a significant place in his heart. After we parted ways, the sharp pangs of bitterness, loss, and anxiety he had been too stubborn to acknowledge, all of those emotions were simply the result of one thing: liking me. Guilt-ridden, he leaned in closer, his eyes drooping as he adopted a pitiful look. "It was my mistake back then, David Brooker. I didn't know how good you were. Please forgive me, will you?" He knew exactly how to manipulate me. This childish, vulnerable demeanor was what most easily tugged at my heartstrings. "You're about to enter into an arranged marriage, and you're saying this to me? That's inappropriate. I'm 28 now, not some naive kid who can be swayed by a few soft words." I didn't want to give in too easily. I needed him to speak clearly, to confess his true feelings. Mike Russell's desperation grew. "I haven't entered into any marriage yet. It's all just for show. In 2 days, once I close this big deal, I'll have leverage to negotiate with my dad. I'll fight for what I deserve, for the life I want to lead. David Brooker, I like you. I want to be with you forever. Do I still have a chance?" He looked at me, his eyes filled with eagerness and a hint of nervousness. "I've given you chances before," I said, the words a bit more final than I intended. I was too stubborn to admit it before. You can hit me, yell at me, just don't leave me, he begged, his voice trembling with emotion, tears pooling in his eyes as he gazed at me. I sighed deeply, trying to keep my composure. I'm getting old. I can't seem to feel the same way about you anymore. No, you're not old. You're not old at all. Mike Russell's voice cracked, his eyes filling with tears as he desperately tried to stop himself from crying. Taking a deep breath, as if he had made a firm decision, he dropped all pride and called out, I'm stupid. A huge idiot. I like David Brooker. I like you the most. Please, be with me. The sound of his tear dropping onto my face caught my attention. His beautiful face was streaked with tears, his eyes looking at me with an almost pitiful intensity. I was stunned, my heart racing painfully in my chest. He really was just such an adorable, foolish boy. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Mike Russell, embarrassed, turned red all over, biting his lip, clearly unsure whether to say more. I laughed for a while before finally speaking again, my voice slow and calm. All right, I understand. He immediately pressed on, anxious to know what my answer meant. So, what does that mean? I relaxed my posture, raising my bound hands and gently wrapping them around his neck, pulling him down closer. With tenderness and warmth, I whispered, let's see how you act. If I'm satisfied, I'll consider keeping you by my side. Finally, I had softened. Mike Russell's eyes brightened instantly, and the arms holding me shook as his pheromones surged, nearly overwhelming me. I meant that I wanted him to handle the things his family had arranged, to prove that he could take control of his own life. But then, as he bit down on my gland once more, I realized he had misunderstood my words. He pinned me against the door with force. The big deal in his hands was one he had managed to secure through connections, an important project under the deputy mayor of the Northern District. The project had been a success, and the deputy mayor was frequently praised by his superiors. The deputy mayor was particularly impressed with Mike Russell's abilities and was eager to establish a long-term partnership with him. Mike Russell used this leverage to negotiate with his family. If he couldn't have control over his own life, he would quit the company and refuse to take on any more business matters. This ultimatum infuriated his father, but there was nothing he could do about it. In business, profits mattered, especially when it involved connections with high-profile figures. So, of course, his father wasn't willing to give up on this easily. After much contemplation, he agreed to Mike Russell's demands, canceling the arranged marriage and allowing him to have control over his life. After agreeing to be with Mike Russell, I noticed that he became unusually clingy, almost to the point of being overly affectionate. While there were still moments when he acted a bit domineering, at least he no longer spoke harshly or arrogantly. He learned to express his true feelings more openly. He developed an especially stubborn habit, though. Whenever we were in an emotionally vulnerable moment, he would insist on hearing me say that I wouldn't leave him. If I didn't respond, his eyes would tear up, and he'd repeat his plea, his voice both desperate and sweetly coaxing. You have to like me the most, only me. I'm the same, of course. Eventually, Mike Russell picked an auspicious day to take me to the Russell family home. There, he made it clear that he would never let anyone but me be by his side for the rest of his life. After all the chaos and misunderstandings, his parents no longer pressured us about social status or family background. As long as we loved each other, that was enough. Mike Russell held my hand tightly, his face glowing with happiness. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he looked at me. David Brooker, let's be together forever. I returned his smile, squeezing his hand in response. We will. Then.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.